guys? It's so great to be here with Behind the Chair. Thank you to my BTC family for letting me come on today to hang out with you guys, and also to our Alpha Park family for having me on. Quick introduction, and then I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about what I'm doing. My name is Cassie. I'm the National Artistic Director with Alpha Park Milano. And, you know, in this live today, I'm actually going to talk about basing. I'm going to talk about placing depth, especially at the base in your color applications, to promote better longevity, but also like an overall end result of lived-in color. But what's really unique about my model here, if you guys can see, I'm going to bring her a little closer. She has gray. So basing with gray coverage clients can sometimes be tricky, and there's a couple really important tips that I'm going to share with you guys. With that in mind, as I'm applying, we are doing a giveaway, so you could win all the products that I speak to and use on this live today. All you have to do to enter is ask a question in the comments, and you will be potentially winning all of these products that I'm using. So keep that in mind. But as I kind of walk through everything, first I want to share with you guys my blonding service that I did. So obviously you can see my client does have some highlights. One thing I want to point out with my client is before I did her blonding service, she was really heavy, like light gray at her hairline, which I think sometimes happens a lot with our clients. So because of that, the face frame trend works beautifully for her. I'm able to customize a little bit more of a gradient face frame throughout the front here. And what that's gonna do is, you know, it's gonna change what she sees when she looks in the mirror as her hair grows out. So when her hair grows out at the base here, obviously her grays are gonna come through. If I can effectively lift this clean and then tone it cool, the progression of her regrowth is gonna look way nicer, way softer for her. So that's really exciting, and I think that's one of the main important things when you're doing your blonding service for a client that has gray, to kind of customize it for them. Additionally, I always like to speak to my lighteners that I use. So at the front hairline, I almost always use Alpha Park Milano's BB Bleach Easy Lift 7. It's way more gentle, and it's not going to break all that hairline here, which sometimes can happen. And then throughout the interior, so once I move back from the hairline and I get kind of more into the part line and the ends, I'm actually using our High Lift 9. So something really cool to know about this lightener is it's actually designed to lift through artificial color. So the fact that it can lift through artificial color makes it ideal for clients that have like that color buildup on their ends from being gray and, you know, covering it opaquely. But doing these services, it's one of my favorite things for gray coverage clients, because you can totally transform the maintenance of their gray. Like the durability of the color lasts a lot longer. So I have my base color applied back here. And anytime I'm doing a base color, I like to apply in the back first. And now what I'm going to show you guys, so I have her applied at her base here in the front, but I haven't combed it down yet. So I want to show you guys that process, because the way I do that for gray coverage clients is very specific and a little bit different than what you might be used to. I am using a demi-permanent color at her base. So this is a really cool thing with Alpha Park Milano. You can get 100% gray coverage with our demi-permanent colorwear line. Your formulation doesn't need to be spot on, which I'll talk about in a second. But as I'm combing it down, what I want you to notice is when I'm starting my comb, I'm starting at the bottom. So I'm not starting where she has, you know, solid saturation, because that's where we need to cover that gray, right? I'm starting at the mid or end of where that color is kind of, I guess, grouped together. And that's where I'm combing it down. So again, I'm not starting at the top here. If I were to start at the top here and comb it down, what would happen is I'm grabbing all of that full saturation color that's needed for her to get 100% gray coverage, and I'm taking it away. And we don't want that, so we want to kind of comb down and progress more toward the bottom than the top, because now I'm not affecting all of this saturation. So she's still going to get the gray coverage she's looking for, but I'm still creating that beautiful, progressive, diffused look that base colors often give. Cool. So I'm just going to keep going here. Another thing I'll point out, just like a traditional base comb down with clients in gray, With this, I'm actually keeping it off of the front as much as possible. I just saw a really great question come through by Michelle. Michelle is asking, why do you start in the back and not the front? With bases, it's actually extremely important to start where you want the color to deposit or be darkest first. So for me, that was the back. And in the back, what you'll notice is it's progressed down a little bit farther toward the back. So that way she has naturally more depth back here. And as we get towards the front, what you'll notice is it's still down to where she has gray. So we're, addressing that need, but I'm progressing it down just a little bit less. And then once I get to the front hairline, it'll be even less than that. So what that creates is a natural cascade of more lightness towards the front and depth towards the back. So that was a really great question. But anytime I'm basing, I always start in the area where it needs to be darkest. And for me, with a lot of these balayage applications, that tends to be the back. So I'm just kind of continuing here. Notice how I started from the bottom and I'm working my way up. Sorry, awkward laugh there. As we're combing down this color, what I want to be super aware of are the ends. So these ends that I've lifted, I don't want any of that base color to go on the ends in places where I don't want it. So I'm being very meticulous. I'm, holding up the ends, keeping them really separate. And I think starting from the bottom and working your way down is a really helpful way to do that. So pay attention to your progression. You want to make sure that as you're combing down, you want to see where that color is going to change. So, with this, it's kind of ending a little bit harsh for me. I'm actually going to add a little bit more color here. Very softly, not a lot, just a little bit toward the back. And I see some warmth here too. My client did have some warm lines from her previous color. But then I'm just going to comb that down nice and gently. And you see how that creates a different depth line. So now our depth line is kind of diagonal. So she's going to have a lot more of that brightness towards the front and more depth toward the back. But I'm really designing her color just a little bit differently with her base color. And I'm going to leave, so I have like her super blonde area in the front. I'm going to do that last. I do have this other side to apply to, so I'm going to do that really quick for you guys. And again, this is as you're applying your base color, one thing I like to do is as I'm applying it to the new growth, I'll actually do the opposite. I'll start at the top and work my way down. And as I'm applying this, I'm going to turn her toward you guys in just 1 second so you can see I'm leaving out that hairline. So again, I'm leaving out this blonde face frame because I want to make sure that that is touched with the base last. I'm making sure that I'm progressing my color with full saturation to where her gray regrowth is. So let me put this section up because I'm coming out of my highlights where I did highlight her. And I want to show you where that line is because applying to that line with full saturation is really important. Okay, so if you can see here, her gray comes down to about here. Okay, so from here to here, I want to fully saturate, okay? Another thing to think about, I talked about how I did my blonding service first. Another thing to think about when you're doing your blonding service, you want your highlights to come up to at least here, because then your client's actually going to be able to see them. Additionally, this is why it's important when I do these applications. I have clients, if they want their highlights to be a little bit higher, see, so I'm opaquely applying down to that line, and then I'm going to progress it down with a comb through afterward. But if I have clients who want their highlights a little bit higher, they need to come in a little bit quicker so there's not as much regrowth. And then I have the opportunity to diffuse my highlights a little bit higher. So just some minor adjustments, but our great coverage clients should be able to get beautiful balayages and benefit from, that lived in color look as well. I did see a good question come in about how long this takes in the salon. So I am in kind of, I guess, the Alpha Parf Milano way. We always want to teach and and do color in a way that is providing the client with the best service possible, not just the fastest thing. Now, don't get me wrong, we're always looking for efficiency, and obviously time is money. So to answer your question, I will be totally transparent. This process is maybe about 10 to 15 minutes longer than if, let's say, you were to do her base color simultaneously with her lightener. Now, there's a huge reason why I don't do that. The reason why I don't do that is because your clients won't experience a clean lift and then won't experience, the durability and longevity that maybe your work would otherwise provide. So for me, with clients who are looking for like a gray coverage balayage type look, and when I'm doing a base color like this, if her blonde wasn't lifted this clean, she would never be able to be a cool tone, right? When we're doing base colors and lightener at the same time, we often just kind of force our clients to be warm. And if they want to be warm, that's great. But if they want the tone to kind of match their gray and give them a softer grow out, you want this to be cool. You want this to actually be as cool as possible so that your client can benefit from the placement of your blonde according to how their gray grows. So I will say this takes longer, but I will also tell you that it's worth it. It's so much worth the extra time to just do the base and the lifting separately. I don't know about you guys either, but I always tone my clients. Like I never let a client leave without toning her. So, what's kind of great about that is my client's going to be here anyway for the toning portion. So I just need to apply my base color first, let it process to give her the coverage she needs. And then I can also tone her at the same time. Another great tip for if you're doing this on gray hair is to have the hair pretty dry. You'll notice my beautiful model here, her hair is dry and was dry before I started. So it's really great to ensure that your canvas is dry to get the most coverage possible. So I think I saw a question come in just about like spottiness or color, going in places where you don't want it. And this is a great question. So as I'm going through and combing this, again, this is another really important reason why I like to start from the bottom and work my way up, because now I'm not disrupting the hair that I had already, combed down and progressed. What you'll also notice is as I'm laying down my sections, I'm being super delicate. So I'm holding it out to where it's not being, there's no pressure on this section and the one I just did. I'll comb it down, and as I create my progression, I want you to watch my elevation change. Okay, so I'm working this color through, and then I lay the hair down. So a really important focus here to make sure that color isn't going in places where you don't want it is by being very delicate with the application. And just making sure that, if I'm, let's say, finessing the top here, like I want to finesse the top on this side, just like I did the other side. If you're doing it, you have to be super delicate, both with the pressure on your comb and with the pressure of your application brush. So be super delicate, meaning I am like living on the surface of this hair. I'm not pushing my comb all the way through. I'm being very delicate with it. I did see a question about if I filmed the blonding service or the balayage. That is something that you can totally see if you go to Apple Park USA's main page. And actually my Instagram page as well. I have a full video on how I do the blonding process of like a great coverage balayage like this. So you can see it. But for today, we're focusing on the basing. And then I'm also going to show you guys how I melt in a toner, which can really help blend everything, create a super seamless end result, and get your client feeling and looking beautiful. Okay, so just to review, I'm going to clean this up and then I'm going to walk through what I'm doing again for you guys. Okay. So on my client, again, what I'm showing you guys is the basing and toning process. And I'm showing this on someone who has gray hair because we know that our gray coverage clients, often want to wear the same looks. And, if your clients aren't gray yet, they eventually probably will be if they stay with you. So super important here, formulation first, and I don't think I mentioned my full formula, but I actually am using a 5 in Alpha Park Milano's Demi-Permanent Colorwear. So you can get 100% gray coverage with this, which is bomb. It gives you the flexibility and movability of a demi, but the coverage that you might want from a permanent, you can get 100% coverage with this. A 5, and I mix it equal parts with a 632. So a 632 is a gold base with an ash reflection, like a blue reflection. So it's a really nice beige tone. Just provides me with, something that she's used to based on the depth in her ends, but still a really soft, nice tone that will progress beautifully into the highlights I created. I did mix it 1-to-1, and I did actually use 10 volume. So formulation also has to be spot on. If you're trying to use demi-permanent color for great coverage, your formulation's got to be perfect. So that 5 is what's going to give me 100% coverage. And then additionally, because I'm not trying to lift her natural, I just want to deposit, I use 10 volume. So that's a really important one. And I think in general with Alpha Park Milano, unless you're trying to create lift on the natural level, 10 volume is a great go-to for great coverage. Okay. So I've applied my base color, and what I wanted to show for you guys is how I comb it down. So to review again, and I'll probably take a section here in the back to show you guys. So as I've combed it down and progressed it in the back, a couple things I want to point out about doing this with gray hair. You never want to start your comb down at the top. Why? Because then I'm grabbing color from where I need it to be fully saturated to get that coverage. I want to start more on the mids or ends. So past that demarcation line, and that's where I want to, comb it through. I'm also releasing my comb at the bottom so that I'm not combing this into the ends if I don't want it to be there. So by release, I mean I'm combing it down and then pulling it out. And you want to be really clean and make sure that the ends are, kind of independent. I did do my blonding service first, and I did use Alpha Park Milano's BB Bleach. At the hairline, I used our Easy Lift 7 because it's more gentle and we don't want to break all these little baby hairs. On the interior, on clients who maybe have previous color on their ends from gray coverage, if you want this clean lift, you want to use our High Lift 9. So when you see the 9, know that that is a more potent lightener mixture, and it's designed to lift through artificial color, okay? So let me say that again, artificial color, that previous color, this lightener is designed to break through that. So if you're working on clients who have a ton of color buildup on their ends from covering their gray, being dark for a long time, all that good stuff, High Lift 9 is your go-to. Okay. So now that I have applied my base color all over, what I also want to point out to you guys is I've kind of designed my depth lines in the front. So kind of what I want you to envision is like an imaginary diagonal line here. I've combed down my base color farther towards the back and higher towards the front. This creates a natural progression of brightness towards the face. And again, in the back, I start in the darkest area first. So I started in the back, progressed it down the farthest in the back. Then I brought it up a little higher as I got towards the front, and the hairline I'm going to show you now. So with the hairline, I have another brush and mix this up. In the hairline, what I actually like to do is I apply my toner to her front face frame and hairline pieces first, and then I'll tap the base on afterwards. So what this ensures is that it's not going to go too dark and suck up that color. It still maintains a really bright, beautiful base color. And again, I am toning a little bit cooler because for my client, for example, she has a really high percentage of gray around the face. So she actually has, a blonding face frame that is customized to the way her gray hair grows out, which is going to be beautiful for the durability of her color. I see a good question come in. Let me read this. Let's see. I find our clients don't want to pay lots of money and want their balayage as quick and cheap as possible. How do you price yours, please? Ooh. So, I mean, this is kind of a tricky and challenging conversation to have because I feel like with a lot of clients, You're right. They want the world, right? They want us to wave our magic tint brushes and make them a beautiful balayage, but they want it at a discount and they want it very quick. So I would say you have to begin to charge your worth, regardless of what your clients want and what they're telling you. Actually, let me explain my formula right now, and then I'm going to come right back to that question. So, you guys, I'm applying our Color Wear Demi-Permanent 1002. So this is just a very, very soft violet. I want to keep her as bright as possible within this money piece. But I do want it cooler because, again, if my goal is to ensure that she has, you know, better color longevity growing out with her gray, I want the tone to be cool. And again, that's also why it's so important for me that I keep my lifting and my color depositing surfaces opposite. I'm sorry, not opposite, separate. I guess kind of opposite. Where I'll do the blonding service first, and then I will do the base and the toning service like I'm doing now very last. So I'm applying to her front face frame now first. And then I'll go through and actually melt this into, so you guys can kind of see I've just like brought it all the way up to her face frame. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. This is also really great. So one thing I want to point out, there's some color, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's some color sitting on her face frame from her base that I don't want. If you apply your toner first and kind of melt it through, it totally creates a beautiful progression there. So it's a really nice and easy way to kind of adjust that mistake. If you melt these two together and create some beautiful progression. All right, so let me circle back to the question about pricing and timing. And this is also really important to, I guess, kind of note with that. I am my own stylist, and as are you. So what works for me may not work for you, and that's just, you know, something I always like to point out when I answer pricing and timing questions. Now, I am a stylist that values perfecting and making sure that I'm fully customizing my work to my client. And I communicate that to my clients before I come in. So they know that I'm likely to spend a little bit more time on them and that they may pay a little bit more. But the end result of that is they're getting completely customized, beautiful color that grows out and lasts them a long time. So that is my personal approach. And it's sometimes why I have a hard time, you know, kind of answering some of those questions that are regarding, you know, pricing lower and timing faster. Now, one thing I want to, I guess, say with that is if you're looking for a way to give your clients like this look, maybe within quicker time and at, you know, a lower price point, what I did as far as the blonding service goes on this model, and I'll make sure to post the after for you guys, all I did was a face frame. All I did was like, I don't know, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 12 foils total in the front to create the blonding service that she's looking for. And then I just focused on, you know, again, giving her the coverage that she needs. So that's maybe what I would encourage you to do. Do more of a partial. Give her a super, super pretty, completely customized, impactful face frame, and then go through and do her base and tone. And that way you're not spending as much time. And you're able to price, you know, in a way that's maybe a little bit more reasonable for her. So what I want you guys to notice too is I am melting these two colors together. So I'm really progressing them so that they kind of collide within each subsection. It's really important to me that that I have a really nice seamless blend between the two colors. And the best way to do that is to melt the two together. If your client has a super dark base color, so if she were, 5.5, 6 is probably the darkest I would go in melting these two together. If she has a super dark one, it might be wise to either dampen the ends before you apply the toner, or rinse out the base and do the toner totally separate. Couple different options there, but I think it really helps to keep everything nice and clean if you kind of consider that. Okay, continuing to work through. And I'm going to separate, her front piece from this back. One of our branded techniques with Alpha Park Milano is the Italian face frame. So if, again, kind of circling back to that question about being quick and doing like a mini version, my mannequin only had the Italian face frame. So we do have videos on that you can watch and reference. Just head to our Alpha Park USA page or head to mine, and we'll definitely help direct you to that. Let's see, another good question. Thoughts on putting conditioner on the blonde parts you lifted so that the root color doesn't get on the blonde? You totally can. The only thing about putting conditioner in it is then it blocks you from getting your toner to absorb, right? And with this, it's almost just as important that my toner absorbs as does my base color, because again, remember, what's the goal of her face frame? Having that blonde in the front here is really meant to give her a nice grow out from her natural gray. Messy down here. Because I want her to grow out and not have, so much maintenance with her gray. So let me turn her again. So again, super simple application, you guys, but it's really important that, when you're doing base colors for clients that need gray coverage, that they are getting the little teeny bits of customization that they need. I see a question about the consistency of the demi-permanent color. This is actually super dope. So the new colorwear formulation within Alpha Park Milano, which is our demi-permanent line, it's kind of like a gel and cream viscosity. So it starts like a cream when you mix it in the bowl. But as you apply it, one thing I love about basing with it is it kind of creates like a gel viscosity. So as you apply it, it actually transitions to kind of lay on the areas of the hair where you applied it a little bit better. But what I also love about the gel is the slipability. So if I wanted to go back in and kind of like I showed you guys, recomb through a portion of the hair that I want to, adjust the progression or customize the progression of, I can totally do that with this viscosity. So it's actually a really, really nice combination of both gel and cream. Another tip that I like to share when I'm doing this is I do always apply my toner in the front first. Okay, so oppositely, I mentioned I'm doing my base color in the back first. When I'm applying my toner, I apply it in the front first. Now, the reason why is because if I've formulated correctly, meaning I haven't over-formulated an ash or formulated a level that's too dark, I shouldn't worry about that front hairline grabbing too much. But what I do want, again, in the goal of this application, is to really make sure that my client's getting a cooler end result of that front face frame so her gray can grow in beautifully. So because of that, I want her front, and where she's blondest actually, to get the toner the longest. And I see a question about process time. So with our demi, the fastest you could rinse these off is 10 minutes. In a lot of our classes, we talk about dye precursors, and when they get an opportunity to oxidize, your color won't look the way you expect it to if you don't let it process for at least 10 minutes. So 10 is kind of a minimum. And I would say, with clients that are getting this gray coverage balayage service hybrid, what I'll typically do is I'll apply the base color first. I'll let that sit for a good 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'll go through and start applying my toner. just so that way her gray coverage is getting, you know, the process time that it needs. But even still with this client, like I'm not worried about the front processing too much. Let me clean this up and then I'm gonna bring her a little closer to you guys so you can see the front. And so you can see what I'm gonna do with this hairline. So with that being said, again, I can actually see that she's depositing beautifully. Like it's cool, but remember, and actually this is something that as soon as someone told me this, I was like, oh my God, that's so helpful. When you're watching your toners process, the first color you're typically gonna see is blue. The reason why is because a blue dye precursor, doesn't matter what color line you're using, a blue dye precursor will always show up first. It's always what you're gonna see first. So because of that, think of the three primary colors, blue, red, and yellow. We know that each color is typically, you know, some combination of those three. If you take your toner off too early and all you've seen is blue, it's actually gonna look really cool and a lot cooler than what you initially anticipated. So because of that, it's really important to let your toner sit for at least 10 minutes and trust it. You know, even if this is looking a little bit too cool for you, let it sit. Trust your formulation, trust the color line you're using, and just let it do its thing because that's really, really important. Let me repeat my formula again. So her toner is actually a 1002. And I mixed it 1 to 2 with our 5 volume Oxido. And then at her base, I did equal parts just of 5. So the 5 is going to give me all that great coverage I need. And then I mixed it with a 632 with 10 volume. Cool. All right, so now the last thing I need to do is tap the base in at the front hairline here, okay? So when you're tapping in the front hairline, I'm again taking that same deep formula that I used at her base to cover her gray. Let's see. And all I want, here, I'm gonna try to just grab. There we go. It's a perfect section. I love when that happens. Okay, so she's toning, she's looking amazing. And at this front hairline, I mean, there's almost no product on my brush. Like I am like wiping everything off as I can. Maybe just loading on like that tiny, tiny, tiny little bit on the end. And I'm gonna tap it onto the top of her face frame piece. So let me bring her a little closer for you guys. So you can see, do you see where I tapped in that color? Super delicate, super light. You don't wanna be, you know, too harsh with it. And then just comb it down. You don't need a lot, but that little bit is going to create a beautiful blend of color. This is another thing I like to point out about basing. Oftentimes I get asked, why are you basing your client? Why don't you do a blonding service that blends without the base? And I mean, first and foremost, we know that because this client needs gray coverage, she needs a base color. Sorry, I'm way too tall for tripod. We know that she needs a base color because she needs 100% gray coverage. But also something to think about with base colors. They're not just for blending. There's actually a couple different uses for base colors. And one of those is the fade out of your color. So since I've tapped in the base color, when she rinses her hair and when we style it, she's gonna see a beautiful blend of color from that natural base to her blonde. As she washes and as the color fades, remember this is demi, so it's gonna fade like a demi. That base color is gonna fade away and the blonde is gonna marry beautifully with the gray. That's what I do oftentimes with all of my highlight work as well. Think about it. So if we place our highlights higher and then base and tone to create progression, as she washes her hair, her highlights are actually gonna look like they're still pretty high because that base color is softly diffusing itself as she washes her hair. So basing is actually one of my favorite things to do for clients to ensure that they're getting a really, really great amount of durability and longevity to the color I'm providing them. And I charge for it. Because if you're doing something to promote the longevity of their color that is unique, that is, you know, some level of expertise, it's really important that you credit yourself for that. And then you're not missing out on any money from your clients, you know, not coming in as often. You're still getting the benefit, and their color looks beautiful always. You know, I never want my client to feel like she has to come in because her hair looks bad. If I've been doing your color should grow out beautifully, and you should just come in because maybe you want to, or maybe your highlights are, you know, a little too grown out for you or something to that nature. Cool. All right, we got our basing. And again, this was, you know, really just to show you guys how I add depth, how I base clients and create, you know, a better longevity with their balayage, especially clients with gray hair. I think it's super important for our clients with gray hair to have love too. So I'm really excited to show you guys this application. In the back, I have like maybe a few highlights, but not many. So I'm going to run the toner through these pieces in the back. But again, something really nice with this too is it was just a partial application. It was a very simple face frame, and she's going to look beautiful and fresh after that. So any last questions that we have while I run this toner through the back ends, please let me know. And again, our giveaway, so if you've asked questions today, thank you for your engagement. I very much appreciate it. But we are doing a giveaway to anyone who asks questions. You can win, and actually now I can say what you're gonna win. So you'll win our High Lift 9, which is again the lightener that's designed to lift through artificial color. So great for clients that are looking for that blonding service if they have, you know, grown out pigment from gray coverage or what have you. You will also win a few of our Colorwear Demi-Permanent shades. So I am going to throw in, I think we'll throw in the 5 and the 6, and then the 1002 that I toned with. And of course, developers to help you get going. So all of the products that I use to create this beautiful look, and I will absolutely be posting pictures, and I'll send them to my friends at BTC so you guys can see the after. But yeah, I think that's everything. So all in all, if you guys have any questions or want to touch base with me after this, my Instagram handle is Cass Siskovic. It's right under my screen. Make sure to connect with us at Alpha Park USA. We are doing some really dope things here in the US, especially next year. So if you've never tried Alpha Park Milano, please connect with us. We'd love to have you in the family. But yeah, I think I just saw like one more question. Something about bond builders. Do I use Olaplex when lifting? I don't. I never use bond builders. Alpha Park Milano does have a bond builder, which is nice. You can mix it in with your lightener or your color. I am a low and slow kind of gal when it comes to lightener application and formulation. So like I mentioned at the hairline, when I'm using lightener at the hairline, I'm always using the less potent, the more gentle lightener, which is our Easy Lift 7. I will tell you there are very rare occasions where I use over 20 volume with my lightener too. So even with this High Lift 9, if I'm using that on her ends that have a ton of previous color, I'm still using 20 volume because I have a higher potency with this lightener. I don't need a super aggressive developer. It really helps to maintain the integrity of the hair. And something super interesting to know, the other major reason why I don't add bond builder is because within our BB bleach, BB stands for bond builder. So there is a bond builder. It's a biomimetic keratin actually. That's within all of our lighteners already. So you already have the bond builder built in. You're gonna get a super healthy and beautiful end result without the extra bond builder. So just another plus. But thank you guys so much. It was great to see you, and hopefully we'll connect later. I hope you have a great week.